You've probably heard people say things like, no pain, no gain. But that's not discipline, that's just being addicted to hard. And after years of helping people lose weight as a dietitian and building a multiple seven-figure business from scratch, I've learned that most of what we're taught about discipline is a total myth. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 6 things that actually build real discipline so you can follow through and reach your goals fast, starting with the first one. The if-then plan. You know sometimes how you say, tomorrow I'm going to work out after work. And then tomorrow never comes and your brain's like, or we could go home and watch Netflix. That moment right there, the pause and debate and the back and forth, this is where most goals go to die. What this tool does is it removes that debate before it ever starts. It's basically pre-deciding when and where and how something will happen so your brain doesn't have to vote about it later. So it sounds really simple, but it's really powerful. Right after college, when I was doing my internship to become a dietitian, one of the other interns convinced me to sign up for a 5K with her. And I'd said yes because it kind of sounded fun, but honestly, I could not run to save my life. And so I'd go out after work thinking, I'm gonna run today, I'm gonna start. But by the time I was home, I was tired, I was starving. And then one day, I learned about a tool called if-then. So it looks like this. If it's 6 p.m. and I clock out of the hospital, then I'll drive straight to the park and run for 20 minutes before going home. And that was it. Just that one sentence. But it really changed everything for me because when 6 p.m. came, I didn't have to think about what I was going to do. I grabbed my shoes, get in the car, and drive to the park. So it became automatic. Like the decision had already been made earlier in the day. And so I didn't have to burn energy arguing with myself about it in the moment. And then within a few weeks, I was running, 3 times a week. And by the end of the internship, we finally actually did the 5K race and I finished the race. And that's what I found so powerful about this research is because people who make specific cue-based plans stop hesitating and second guessing. Their brains link the situation, so this is the if, with the behavior, the then. When that happens, it cues the behavior. And taking action starts to feel natural. Instead of saying, I'll try to work out more, you say, if it's 5 p.m. and I'm leaving the office, then I drive straight to the gym before I go home. Or if I make my morning coffee, then I'll open my notebook and plan my day before checking my phone. And so that if X, then Y structure actually rewires your brain. It builds this mental shortcut between the cue and the action. So when 5 p.m. rolls around or when the coffee machine starts in the morning, your brain doesn't have to stop and negotiate what it should do. It's already learned the next step. And it's like creating this mini autopilot commands for your habits that you're building. Dozens of studies show it works across everything from exercise to studying to healthy eating. It's one of the most proven tools for turning intentions into follow through. And the cool part is it doesn't rely on motivation, it relies on clarity. You don't need to feel inspired, you just need a plan that tells your brain what to do when this trigger shows up. So if there's something that you've been putting off, whether it's working out, writing something, studying, whatever it is, write down your own version of your if-then. If it's time and I'm situation, then I'll do this. And it sounds so tiny, but the data and my 5K legs will literally tell you that this works. And this allowed me to stop arguing with myself and just start doing it. And so here's what really made me stick with the discipline. I found a way to actually make my progress visible, which is number 2, the awareness advantage. See, this is where a whole body of research shows that the simple act of tracking what you're doing dramatically increases your chances of sticking with it. Not because tracking magically makes you better, but because awareness changes the behavior. So back in 2009, researchers did a big review of all of the behavioral interventions and found that self-monitoring, so just tracking your progress, was one of the most powerful techniques across all health behaviors. And in 2016, there was a meta-analysis where they studied this, and they found that people who monitored their own behavior were significantly more likely to achieve their goals than people who didn't monitor it at all. And the difference was not small either. It was consistent across diet, exercise, studying, financial goals, anything. Basically, the data says this: if you track it, you improve it. And I can tell you this from experience. So as a dietitian, I can tell you this is why food journals are so powerful. When I write down what I'm eating and I'm able to observe it, instantly creates awareness for me. And almost instantly, I start making different choices. So I'd look at what I wrote down and say, okay, maybe I don't need this third cup of coffee today. Or maybe I don't need this third handful of nuts today. Why is this so powerful? Because you can't change what you can't see. Tracking creates this feedback loop. You act, you measure, you see the results, and you adjust. And once you start seeing progress, your brain gets so hooked on the feeling. It starts releasing dopamine, which feels rewarding, and it makes you want to do more of that behavior. So if you've been trying to build discipline, here's the simple fix. Stop guessing how you're doing and start tracking it. Start looking at it. And you don't need any fancy software to do this or even a fancy spreadsheet. It could literally be tally marks on a sticky note, a check on a calendar, a quick note in your phone. Because the moment that you start tracking something, it goes from what's invisible to what's actionable. And some of those patterns are really humbling because I realized it wasn't my lack of discipline that kept tripping me up. It was the world I built around myself, my entire environment. And so that leads me to number 3, which is preparation over personality. Have you ever said to yourself, I just wish I was one of those people born naturally disciplined, like it's a personality trait? I used to think that too. Like they were just born with this built-in sense of focus that the rest of us somehow just always missed. It was so easy for them, and I figured that's just who they are. But I was so wrong because discipline is not a personality thing, it's a preparation thing. The people who look naturally disciplined aren't relying on this superhuman willpower. They're relying on setting up their environment to support them. So they've already made their decisions before the moment actually comes and asks them to do the thing. They've decided ahead of time. And when you start looking closely, you are going to start seeing this everywhere. That friend of yours who eats clean, she's not battling temptation every day. She just doesn't keep the junk food in her house. The guy who never misses a workout, he's not magically motivated to work out. His clothes are laid out, his gym is on his calendar, and his friends expect to see him there. The coworker who always seems to be focused, it's not that they have more attention than you, they've just removed all of the things that steal it. And so we know this to be true from research, that nearly half of what we do every day, about 45%, comes from habit cues that come from our environment. Which means most of what we call discipline is just people designing their surroundings to do all the heavy lifting for them. So when you look at it in that way, being undisciplined is not a character flaw at all. It's just usually just being completely unprepared in your environment. Because when life starts to get chaotic and busy like it does for all of us, you fall to the level of your preparation, not the level of your intention. So you want to eat better, but your pantry looks like a convenience store. You want to be focused, but your phone is sitting there with notifications going off every 5 seconds. You want to stop drinking, but your weekends are still built around the people who are still going out and partying. It's not that you're lazy, you're just living in an environment that makes discipline harder than it needs to be. And when I finally stopped blaming my personality and started preparing my environment for success, everything started to change. I quit asking myself, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be disciplined? And I started asking, what can I set up right now to make this easier next time? And after I changed that question and what was around me in my environment, it got so much easier to follow through on discipline. But there was still something deeper that was pulling me back into some old habits. Even when everything was set up perfectly in my environment to win, I'd still catch myself thinking, I'm just not that kind of person. Which leads me to number 4, which is who before what. Most people say things like, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to write a book, or I want to save $5,000. And there's nothing wrong with having outcome goals, but the moment you hit them or miss them, then your motivation completely disappears. And so identity-based habits completely flip the script on this. It's not about what you're trying to get, it's about who you're becoming. So instead of saying, I want to lose 10 pounds, you'd say, I'm the kind of person who takes care of their body. Instead of saying, I want to write a book, it becomes, I'm a writer and writers write. Instead of saying, I want to save money, it's, I'm someone who makes intentional decisions with my money. And psychologists call this self-concordance theory. They found that when people align habits with their identity, their motivation not only lasts longer, but their behavior feels completely natural. It's like your brain wants to act in a way that proves your self-image true. And I remember when I learned this firsthand. Back when I was first starting running, and I had never run before, I didn't start seeing progress until I stopped calling myself someone who's trying to run. I started saying, I'm a runner. And it stopped being about the distance that I could run, and it was just about being the person who runs, period. And once I started believing that, skipping runs started to feel out of character. I stopped relying on willpower and white-knuckling myself to go running, and I put on my shoes and I went for the run. So next time you're setting a goal, try this. Instead of asking, what do I want to achieve? Think about, who do I want to become? There's still one of those days that is going to happen to all of us, but there are still those days that happen to all of us where we're tired and busy. We just don't feel like doing anything. And so I found a way to make showing up automatic even on days when I didn't feel like it, which brings me to number 5. Pre-commitment devices. Most of the time when it comes to doing the thing that we said we were going to do, we're not really going to fully feel like it. There's actually a cheat code to actually solve for this, and it's called a pre-commitment device. And it's basically a way to outsmart your future self. You know that version of you that makes those big promises at night and then wakes up in the morning and says, maybe that wasn't such a good idea, maybe tomorrow. Yeah, pre-commitment devices are how you lock in the decision before that version of you can talk you out of it. There's actually some research behind this that shows that when people are self-imposed with their deadlines or financial stakes, they perform significantly better than when the deadlines weren't required. It taps into something called loss aversion, the idea that we're more motivated to avoid losing something than we are to gaining something. And we found that when people are pre-committed, their money, time, and reputation towards the goal, and we found that when people are pre-committed with their money, time, or reputation towards a goal, the follow-through comes at a much higher rate. So what does that look like in real life for us? So for me, I learned this the first time that I invested in myself into a program before I could afford it. And it was this mentorship to help me start my business. It wasn't cheap. It was scary at the time. But because I had invested money up front, skipping the assignments that I didn't feel like doing or dropping out and quitting didn't feel like an option anymore. That commitment forced me to show up differently. It wasn't about guilt or punishing myself at all. It was about taking ownership and personal accountability for what I said I was going to do. I said I'm going to do it, so I'm doing it. Now, you don't have to spend money to do this. You can pre-commit in all kinds of ways. You can tell a friend that you are going to meet them at the gym, so that's social accountability. You can set a non-refundable deposit on something that you've been putting off. You can schedule a workout with a trainer, so skipping becomes harder to change. You can announce a project deadline publicly so people are expecting it. Like, each of these things adds a little bit of friction to the act of quitting. And friction is a good thing because it keeps you honest. The truth is, discipline doesn't always have to live inside of you. Sometimes you can build it outside of you, in your calendar, in your wallet, in your relationships. That's what pre-commitment really is. It's outsourcing the willpower to a system that makes giving up more expensive than showing up. So yeah, if you know that your future self tends to negotiate and not follow through, make the deal while you still mean it. And then your future self is going to thank you for making that hard part automatic for them. That one decision completely changed how I showed up. I started keeping promises to myself because I had skin in the game. And here's the truth, no matter how good your systems are, you are going to fall off sometimes. Nobody's perfect, and that's okay. What matters isn't the falling off and the slip, it's what happens right after. Which leads me to number 6, the never miss twice rule. This next one is one of the biggest indicators of success I've seen from helping people with their health, wellness, helping people start up their businesses, and it's the ability to recover from a slip quickly. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this happen with a client who comes to me and says, I'll be honest, I start really strong, but once I fail or fall off for a day, I go into a spiral. And I tell myself I blew it, beat myself up, and then I quit altogether. But here's what I've learned to be true. Disciplined people aren't perfect. They just recover faster. And there's actually a name for this in psychology. It's called abstinence violation effect. It's what happens when you slip once and then your brain goes, well, I already messed up, right? Might as well just give up completely. The key to long-term success wasn't avoiding every fail or a lapse. It was how fast you bounce back after. And so this is where the never miss twice rule actually comes from. And it's really simple, but it's so powerful. If you miss once, it's totally fine. Just don't miss twice. So let's say that you miss a workout. That's not a failure. That's just some data. But if you miss again tomorrow, now that's momentum in the wrong direction. So the second miss is what turns a slip into a slide. I learned this the hard way when I was starting to create content for my business for the first time ever. I told myself I'm going to post something every single day. And then one night I was exhausted, so I skipped. And then immediately I fell into this pattern where this old perfectionist loop showed up. And it said, well, I broke the streak. I guess I just blew it. It's all over. I'm starting from scratch now. But one of my mentors told me missing once doesn't break the plan. Missing twice builds a new one. And so the next morning, I posted something, even if it wasn't perfect. And you know what? That's the post that actually performed the best. And so this is when I really started to realize discipline isn't about being flawless and having a flawless streak. It's about resilience. And psychologists have found that people who recover quickly after setbacks are the ones who succeed the most long term. Why? Because consistency compounds, even if it's messy. So now whenever I fall off, which inevitably happens, I just remind myself I'm not starting over, I'm just resuming. And this mindset shift keeps all of the shame out of the process and starts creating that momentum, keeping the momentum alive. Miss a day, have an off week, it happens because one slip is part of being a human, but 2 slips is a pattern. And discipline, real sustainable discipline, isn't about never failing. It's about how fast you stand back up. Building discipline is one of the first steps to making change. But if you want to learn how to have the exact habits that helped me create real freedom, then watch this video on the 3 millionaire habits that changed my life. I'll see you there next.